When the human race was initially acknowledged by the Galactic Council, little regard was given to them. Their basic tolerance to both heat and cold, along with a reasonable power-to-weight ratio, were their only notable traits. The most impressive aspect was that they were among the few non-apex predator species to achieve sentience, let alone reach the space age. However, it was noted that they were perceived as a species devoid of any sense of honor. The death of even a single leader could ignite a war of succession lasting for years. In many ways, they are certainly not the worst species in the galaxy, yet they are far from being the best. The Traxi were the first galactic race to contemplate exploiting the vulnerabilities of humans, patiently waiting for the inevitable spark that would plunge all of human civilization into bloodshed and war. 27 years after their recognition by the Council, the conflict that the Traxi had long anticipated erupted into a devastating inferno that consumed the entirety of the human race. The images that emerged from the first week of this conflict continue to haunt me. I cannot comprehend how a race can inflict such devastation upon its own people. There was no compassion, no honor, only the cold calculation of slaughter. As the human conflict approached its twilight stages, the Traxi struck. Millions of Traxi troops and battleships invaded human-controlled territories, and one by one, their planets fell, resulting in millions of human casualties. The rest of the galaxy turned a blind eye. The humans teetered on the brink of annihilation, and no one wished to intervene. Some even aided the Traxi invasion by providing provisions and weaponry in exchange for conquered lands. In the human domain, the human race appeared to be nearing its end. However, rather than fading away into extinction in a disorganized manner, the humans undertook an incomprehensible action. They united. Years of animosity and hatred dissipated in just a few weeks. Individuals who, merely 3 months prior, had vowed to slaughter one another, now embraced each other as brothers. The once unstoppable advance of the Traxi came to a standstill after conquering nearly 73% of human territory in 6 weeks. They failed to make any further progress after 8 months of conflict. The Traxi had engaged in a perilous maneuver. They had inadvertently provided humanity with a common adversary. 2 years into the Traxi-human conflict, the unimaginable began to unfold. The Traxi were being pushed back. The Traxi media portrayed this as a strategic decision aimed at inflicting significant human casualties, which may have held some truth. The humans were likely expending vast resources to regain control of their territories. However, once they had recovered, those territories were never reclaimed. As explained to me by a colleague, the humans would, as they say, simply dig in, a concept that seems absurd, to merely occupy reconquered land and allow the Traxi to come to them. And indeed, they did come. The Traxi relentlessly battered the human lines time and again. Just when it appeared that the humans were satisfied with the territory they had regained, they launched massive counteroffensives that forced the Traxi into yet another chaotic retreat. This was a truly astonishing tactic, yet it proved to be a brutally effective method of warfare. The Traxi would not acknowledge this then, and likely never will. They were losing. 6 years have now elapsed since the onset of what has become the largest war. In the span of 500 years of galactic history, the Council had believed that the humans would halt their hostilities once all territories they had lost were returned to them. The Council, however, was mistaken. Not only did the humans continue their aggressive actions after regaining their territory, but it also seemed that they were intent on eliminating any threats to their species. More than that, the humans were driven by a thirst for blood. They sought vengeance for the human lives lost at the hands of the Traxi, and nothing would deter them. In an ironic twist of fate, the Traxi found themselves fighting for their very survival. In a state of alarm, the council convened an emergency peace talk between the humans and the Traxi. To everyone's astonishment, the humans consented. Thus, the first ceasefire since the war's outbreak was established. Turoi, the human representative, and the 9-member races of the council engaged in peace discussions. The negotiations for peace progressed positively, with the humans once again surprising everyone by maintaining composure and articulating their thoughts with reason and empathy towards the council races. However, they categorically refused to engage with the Traxi. In hindsight, this may have foreshadowed future events, but at that moment I found it justifiable, as I was part of the diplomatic mission and held hopes that a resolution to the conflict was imminent. That was until the Traxi raised the issue of compensation, which they were entitled to as the conquered party, demanding equal monetary restitution for any of their lands still occupied by human forces at the time of the treaty's signing. The human delegation fell quiet upon hearing the Traxi ambassador finally address the matter. After a brief pause, one of their representatives spoke up, asking, "Please tell me this is some kind of joke to commemorate the commencement of peace." The representative from Chennai interjected, "Of course not. It is their right to inquire about that, and it is your obligation to respond. To refrain from doing so is simply—" The representative from Chennai hesitated for a moment. Incomprehensible. The human delegation fell silent once more. The leader of the human party then stood and calmly stated, "You will receive our answer within the hour." Without uttering another word, he exited the room, followed silently by the entire human delegation. The council, pleased with the outcome of the discussions, collectively sighed in relief, as it seemed the humans were prepared to withdraw. We then awaited the humans' response, anticipating an acceptance of peace. At the second hour, the council received a message from the humans. It was the human leader. For several seconds, all that appeared on the video screen was the human, who sat staring at us with an unusual expression, not speaking or moving, merely observing. "Blasted human emotions," the representative from Chennai suddenly remarked, "so damn hard to interpret." The computer was prompted to identify the emotion. It chimed to indicate it had completed its analysis. Emotion identified. Barely contained rage. The human leader then abruptly spoke over the computer, addressing us. "My dear council members." He turned to smile at the Traxi representative. "Member for the Traxi, I regret to inform you that we cannot accept the terms for peace as they currently stand." In an instant, silence enveloped the room for the first time since the peace talks commenced, while he continued to smile at the Traxi representative. "However, we are prepared to reach a compromise." A Traxi soldier abruptly entered the room. "Sir, the human ships are mobilizing." The video screen split in two. One half displayed the human leader, while the other showcased the Traxi homeworld, encircled by the entire human armada. The Traxi member stammered and turned to address the human leader. "What? How? When did you accomplish this?" The human leader merely maintained his smile. Then, without any warning, the human armada unleashed a barrage of fire. In mere seconds, millennia of Traxi culture were reduced to ashes, resulting in billions of innocent lives lost. Before they could grasp the magnitude of the calamity that had struck them, one of the most formidable empires in the galaxy had vanished without a trace. Silence enveloped the room. No one moved, and no one uttered a word. Even the Traxi's sorrow was muted. The human leader spoke once more. "As you can observe, we have chosen to compromise. 16 billion of my fellow humans have perished since this conflict began." Everyone turned, astonished, to face the human leader, attempting to comprehend the staggering loss of life. I believe that exchanging 10 billion Traxi for 16 billion innocent humans constitutes a more than reasonable compromise. Even I could sense that the term compromise was infused with venom and disdain. The human leader continued, "As a species, we are now amenable to any discussions regarding peace." "Are you out of your mind?" bellowed the member from Chennai. "You have just declared war on the entire Galactic Council. Peace? This is the furthest thing from peace that any being could imagine. There will be no peace until your abhorrent race is eradicated from the memories of my grandchildren." The human leader turned his still smiling face toward the member from Chennai. "Good," he replied, as the human leader no longer made any effort to suppress his fury. Tears streaming from his eyes, "I had hoped you would mention that 14 days have elapsed since the conclusion of the Traxi-human war. There was no peace treaty, no surrender, and no ceasefire. One side simply ceased to exist as a people. It has been a lengthy 14 days since the Galactic Council declared war on the humans. 4 races from the Council have defected, all of them disgraced by the Council's initial inaction and failure to prevent the loss of human life during the early stages of the Traxi-human war. All 4 defecting races voted to halt the Traxi when they first began to express interest in the humans, having been coerced into inaction by the Chennai. It is unfathomable that 4 races have separated from the Council, yet this marks the first time in 570 years that the Council is engaged in war, and never before has it been at war with itself. Humans, in just 34 years, have dismantled millennia of tradition, cooperation, and understanding." "Aye, mate!" My new friend beside me grinned, pulling me from my daydream. He was idly picking at his nails with a metallic close combat weapon. "You're not having second thoughts about me, are ya?" I grinned back. "Not on your life, my friend. This will be the first time in nearly 600 years that the Anorak have gone to war." I glanced at my companion, my grin widening. "No, no, my friend. It has been far too long. This shall be enjoyable." His grin erupted into a full-blown laugh. "Just stay alive long enough, and I'll teach you how to prepare the perfect steak." I shook my head at him. Humans are truly insane.